Great. So I wanted to have you come on today and talk about something that's certainly near and dear to my heart. That's closing the digital skills gap. You know, being in the technology business my entire career, my entire life, working life, it was always a matter of too many jobs chasing too few people qualified to do those jobs. And it was a constant fight, constant struggle. I think that issue seems to continue to exacerbate and intensify, and especially the pandemic to a great extent, I think, has amped that up. And then this huge security breach of the Colonial Pipeline, I think, has called everybody's attention and caught people off guard that have determined they need to invest more in protecting their critical IT infrastructure. And as I've said on the air, that's a lot more than just hard technology, hardware and software. That involves people and highly skilled people as well. So this is a constant cat and mouse game, as we say. What's going on there?
I think that there's some universal truths about technology and technology adoption for businesses of all sizes and types, as you know very well. There's a generational divide, there's an industry divide, and now there's sort of a circumstantial divide. What we at the Connected Commerce Council strive to do is to help small businesses particularly find the right digital tools, technologies, platforms, and resources they need to start a business, run a business, grow their business. In some instances, protect the data their business uses to be successful. But during the pandemic, we saw the divide between those businesses that had already invested time and resources into being online, having access to a marketplace, managing their platform data, and those that were thinking about it or weren't quite sure, or were waiting till next year before they take a couple courses to figure out how to use QuickBooks more effectively. That divide widened, and many of the digitally uncertain, unfortunately, didn't make it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That it's one of those things that a lot of small businesses say, well, it's not broken now. I can just kind of keep delaying that investment. And it's not so much the money that's involved there as it is just the disruption to a business, as you know, to take on and implement new applications, new technology, and the change that comes along with that many people find objectionable. And you know, I used to tell folks, well, the one guarantee I can make to you is that you're going to hate this at first, and then you're going to come around in a few months at some point and say, I don't know how we live without this. That's usually the cycle that I always saw, but you're not going to like it. You're not going to like me at first. I'm just clarifying that for you and establishing that. But kind of got caught off guard here because it became digital communications, digital platform, digital tools became really existential to many of these businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, it became the foundation for maintaining any sort of business operations amid the pandemic and national lockdown. We too say that the biggest obstacle for innovation is success. The apathy that comes along with if it isn't broken, don't fix it, leads to a complacency that is unfortunate. And needs to be overcome. One of our strong recommendations on the road to recovery is that public and private entities work together to lower the barrier to entry, because it isn't money, it's time, and it's disruption. That's right. It's the belief that that's somebody else's problem, I'll let them figure it out. And there's a generational divide, no question, but there's also this stagnation that happens around relatively successful small businesses that didn't need technology 10 years ago or 5 years ago that would supercharge their business model and find efficiencies if they adopted it today.
Yeah, totally agree with your statement there. It's not really the financial burden, it's the time burden. And again, the disruption, because most of these folks, they're running around constantly dealing with business matters, and you're talking about introducing a whole new task into their world to take on some of the implementation here. So it's important that they find good partners to work with as well, as you well know. What about some of these antitrust lawsuits that seem to be brewing up? How might, as a small business owner, I need to be concerned about that?
Speaking of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
The disruption, actually, the number one killer, as you know, of small businesses is uncertainty. That's why the
Yep.
pandemic was so problematic. No question, running out of money will put you out of business in a hurry, but not knowing where the next check is coming from or where you can find your customers is just as bad.
Absolutely.
Uncertainty is lethal to small businesses, to startups, small businesses, doesn't matter how long they've been around. Disrupting the model that is working now, that until 15 months ago had built the most successful, most thriving, fastest growing small business community in US history, disrupting that model now because you're mad at a search engine or because you don't like the political insinuation that comes around with Facebook is insane. And
Yeah.
that both parties are having this conversation from different ends of the spectrum and not meeting in the middle is a bit of a godsend for small businesses who just want to get back to work and avoid that disruption. But frankly, it's scary, right? We shouldn't be living in a time like this where when small businesses need it most, when communities are looking for stability, we take this opportunity to go after America's most successful industry. That doesn't make any sense. We're a global leader in technology and the innovation sector, and now we're penalizing those companies that have been most successful by hauling them before state AGs and Department of Justice.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary prospect. I mean, it used to be that IT was for a small business was sort of confined to a couple of accounting applications, and that was about it. But that's not true anymore. Automating the administrative and the operational back office aspects of a business, that's been around a long time, and a lot of folks have that. As you said, many of them are using old versions and really hadn't mastered that and fully implemented and leveraged those tools. But more importantly, there's just a large universe of tools that are valuable to a range of businesses. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, as a consumer, I can see it, the way they interact with me now. It's incredible, and they rely on these platforms to get that done.
We refer to that as the small stack. A traditional IT stack has various components. A small business stack only has what it needs. You need an email provider, whether that's Gmail or you use Microsoft, doesn't matter. There are other options, which is the whole point why this antitrust is crazy. There's advertising, networking. Do you want to do syndicated? Do you want to do federated? What does that look like? Who's your CRM? Is it Salesforce, Constant Contact? Do you have Fusionsoft, something more bespoke? And you build in the options you need, and you leave everything else that you don't. And the ability to take those tools off the shelf, as it were, at incredibly low cost, that you can be sure that the data, as we were discussing more, is secure, because Google has invested billions of dollars in locking down its data so that I don't have to, and we work hand in hand. And the ability to scale that over time, the more successful I get, I pay a little bit more money, but that's okay. My bottom line is growing. And the flexibility to take down one option and put up another is the point. And that's why we have seen this incredibly 8-year period of thriving small businesses sort of on the back end of the 2008 crash. We saw this investment. We saw people who lost their jobs betting on themselves, investing in their own tools, starting new businesses, and that growth showed up in the economy.
Yeah. Well, I think the other good thing about this is a small business has at their fingertips, even a startup is what I should say, so many of these tools ready to go off the shelf to address all of those aspects of operating a business, many of those highly verticalized for the specific industry you're in. And in the old days, vertical tools like that cost a lot of money and were really kludgy and difficult to implement and operate. Now we're talking about off-the-shelf stuff that anybody has access to. It's just amazing, and making it easier to get in business, essentially. And we got to protect that, don't you think?
I do. I think it's sacrosanct. I think it's the cornerstone of capitalism.
I totally agree. Jake, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a good discussion. Appreciate it.